Hello, everybody. We are talking about a mystery today, so let's play a little guessing game. We are talking about a man in a suit, a Boeing 727, a midnight jump into a storm, and $200,000 vanishing into thin air. So, who is this mystery man we're talking about? That's right, D.B. Cooper. And I am going to present today some clues that the FBI may have missed, because I think that we've already solved the case, and the real D.B. Cooper was Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. So Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. was a Vietnam veteran, a decorated helicopter pilot, a Sunday school teacher, and a convicted skyjacker. Okay, so let's talk about the D.B. Cooper skyjacking. So on November 24th, 1971, on Northwest Orient Flight 305, it is going from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. He boards the plane and he hands the flight attendant a note. It reads, "I have a bomb." In the note, he demands $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. So the flight takes off. It lands in Seattle, Washington. He lets the passengers go, he collects the ransom, and then he orders the flight crew to fly him to Mexico. And somewhere over the Pacific Northwest wilderness, he jumps and is never seen again. And the FBI launches one of the most extensive manhunts in U.S. history, but they find nothing. Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. was born on December 7th, 1942, in Kinston, North Carolina. He serves 2 tours in Vietnam. First tour he serves as a demolition expert and then as a helicopter pilot. He is actually an expert survivalist and skydiver. Back home in Provo, Utah, he studied law enforcement at BYU because he wanted to become an FBI agent. April 7th, 1972, McCoy boards United Airlines flight 855. It's a 727. It's the same type of aircraft that Cooper used, and he hands the flight crew an envelope that is marked hijack instructions. And inside the envelope is a hand grenade pen, 2 typed pages, and a bullet. McCoy asks for $500,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. So they land in San Francisco International Airport. He receives the ransom and the flight takes off again. And then somewhere over Utah, he tells them to lower the rear air stairs and he jumps into the night. Only 3 days later, the FBI storms McCoy's home. They find a jumpsuit, parachuting gear, and $499,970. So he is convicted and he's sentenced to 45 years in prison. So why do I think that McCoy might actually be D.B. Cooper? Well, same aircraft type, same rear air steps tactic. It was the same number of parachutes. They were both reportedly calm, polite with the crew. They were both highly skilled parachutists who could survive the terrain. The FBI seemed to think that D.B. Cooper could not have survived the jump given the weather and the height, but there were actually some skilled parachutists that said that it was definitely possible, and they even offered to show the FBI, but the FBI never took them up on that offer. If you look at the composite sketches of Cooper and the photo of McCoy, the resemblance is uncanny. And some people said that McCoy could not possibly be Cooper because Cooper was described as being in his mid-40s and McCoy was only 29, so the age alone ruled it out. But there were many FBI agents who believed that McCoy was their man in the Cooper case. And reportedly, there was several unsubstantiated claims, but there were people that wrote into various newspapers around the country claiming to be Cooper. And some of them, they actually claimed that they had wore prosthetics. So if they wore a prosthetic, wouldn't it be reasonable to think that they could have made themselves look older? And in the case of McCoy, he actually reportedly wore a wig on the flight. Eyewitness age estimates can be wrong, and the MO is pretty rare. So before I get into what happened to McCoy, I want to go over a few more details with the Cooper case. So I went through the FBI vault files on DB Cooper, and the single hijacking that he's credited to, I think, may have not even been his first. A London newspaper writes an article on May 28th, 1971 about a hoax by a Mr. Brown at Sydney International Airport. He demands a ransom of $235,000 from Qantas Airlines after a bomb threat. Mr. Brown was not described in the article, but an identikit picture of him bears a resemblance to DB Cooper. And in the FBI vault files, they actually suggested that maybe Cooper had worked for an airline because he seemed to have an intense hatred for the airlines. Back to McCoy. So how did he get caught in the first place? So apparently he was bragging to an acquaintance about how easy it would be to pull off the perfect hijacking. And after the acquaintance sees on the news about the hijacking, they call the FBI the next day. So the FBI, they go out to Utah and they try to retrace the flight steps. So when they're out there, they actually come across a hamburger stand and they talk to the employees and they show a picture of McCoy, and the female employee there remembers McCoy as having bought a milkshake the night before at around 11:30 at night. And then there happens to be a teenager there, and he also recognizes McCoy and says that he had given him a ride to a nearby town and that McCoy was still wearing a jumpsuit and he was carrying a duffel bag. They really had so much evidence stacking up against this guy. So there was a mainliner magazine and they were able to pull a full fingerprint off of it, and it matched McCoy. Also, he had been given notes to the flight attendants to pass to the pilot, and before he jumps he goes and he collects all the notes, but he forgets one of them, and one of the flight attendants actually kind of like sneaks it away and turns that in. So they do a handwriting analysis that matches. They storm his home and they find a typewriter, and it actually matches the keystrokes of the 2-page typed letter that he turned in. And they looked at the handwriting and they actually even compared it to Cooper's, and some of the handwriting experts actually said that the handwriting did match that of Cooper. I think there is compelling evidence that McCoy was Cooper, but then why did those close to him claim that he was having financial troubles if he had just pulled off this hijacking 5 months earlier for $200,000? Did he maybe somehow lose the money after he jumped out of the plane, and so he had to try to do it again? And if he was DB Cooper, then why was he so careless the next time? Maybe he actually wanted to get caught because he made so many mistakes. I mean, he brags to a colleague about his foolproof plan. So did his ego get the better of him? And then he doesn't have the foresight to change out of his jumpsuit. I mean, the teenager that picked him up and gave him a ride said he was still wearing the jumpsuit. So why doesn't he change out of that? Why doesn't he have a ride planned? I mean, he also left the envelope in the terminal, so a gate agent brought it on board, and then he claimed it. And the envelope is said to have had the words hijacking instructions on them. He also left a fingerprint on a magazine, and he left a note behind. So all I can think of is that maybe he wanted to get caught. Maybe he was actually leaving the $200,000 from the first hijacking to his family and figured they would not look for him as DB Cooper and he would go away and his family would be set. I mean, the FBI would think he was a sloppy copycat. August 10th, 1974, McCoy, along with 3 other inmates, escape federal lockup in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania by commandeering a garbage truck using a fake gun that McCoy had fashioned out of dental paste and then crashing the truck through the prison's main gate. 2 of the guys get caught 3 days later. They end up trying to rob a bank and they get caught up in a shootout. So 3 months go by and FBI agents track McCoy down to Virginia Beach, Virginia, and they're waiting for him inside his home on November 9th, 1974. And he comes home, he walks through the door, and he fires at the agents, and they shoot him dead. But that is actually not the end of our story. In late 2024, McCoy's now grown children are going through their mother's shed and they find a parachute. So they turn it over to investigators, and investigators are now testing it to see if it matches the parachute and the DB Cooper case. They're testing it for DNA, and they're testing it to see if the material matches. There's no official results yet, but if confirmed, this could be the first physical evidence linking McCoy to Cooper. So, mastermind or copycat? Let me know your theory in the comments. Make sure to like, click the bell notification, and subscribe. And don't forget, not all ghosts stay buried. I'll see you next time on Killer Echoes.